Okay, so chapter 19 starts and says the two angels, so we had three men. YHVH stayed with Abraham, and then the other two went to Sodom and Amorah. The two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. So to sit in the gate of somewhere, you were a judge there. And we see the people of Sodom and Amorah say later that Lot is a judge there. So that's what his position was. It says, and when Lot saw them, he rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, look, please, my masters, please turn into your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet and rise early and go your way. And they said, no, but let us spend the night in the open square. Remember why they're there, why they're going down. Okay, they're going down to see the city, to see what the state the city is. But he urged them strongly, and they turned into him and came into his house, and he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread. Was it the festival of unleavened bread? Well, I don't know. That tradition started when they came out of Egypt because they didn't have time to bake leavened bread. So I don't know that it works in that way, but they are both baking unleavened bread. And they ate, and it could just be a practical thing, I'm not sure. Now, Hebrews 13 verse 2 tells us, do not forget to receive strangers, for by so doing some have unwittingly entertained angels. And we don't know at this point whether Lot knew that they were angels or not. We could speculate that he did, and he wanted to get them out of the square of the city because he didn't want them to see the sin of the city and to destroy it, kind of presuming quite a lot. Or he could be in this category where he just received strangers, just immediately like Abraham, he went and bowed himself down to these people. Okay, do not forget to receive strangers. And the word for receive strangers there's not two words. There's not the word for receive and the word for strangers. The word is philoxenia, okay? Philoxenia means love to strangers or hospitality. We've got the word Philadelphia. Okay, we know what Philadelphia means. It means brotherly love. Okay, so philoxenia is love to strangers. It's a feminine noun, so it's the noun, the name for something that does a certain thing or that meets a certain description. And it's the noun for things that can be described by this adjective, this describing word. And the word is philoxenos. Okay, so if we can understand philoxenos, it means hospitable or generous to guests. So you can describe someone as philoxenos, and when you do, what you're saying is they are doing philoxenia. It's made up of this word, philos. Philos means to be friendly, okay, to associate, to have someone as a neighbor, someone to be dear to you. Philos, it's really one of the Greek words for love. Love of your brother, love of the stranger. The other word is xenos. Okay, and xenos means a foreigner, a stranger, alien, or someone that you don't have the knowledge of. So someone that you don't have any knowledge of, someone who's a stranger to you, it's showing love to those people. And we see this actually throughout the Torah. But in order to understand the stranger that we're to love and the stranger that we're not to love, like Yeshua says, doesn't he? They do not know the voice of strangers. The strangers that he's talking about there are bad strangers. But we need to understand some words to understand that. So this word philoxenos, the last word there being xenos for strangers, we see this in the Septuagint. Remember, O Lord, what has happened to us. Behold and look on our reproach. Our inheritance has been turned away to aliens, to allotrios, and we'll look at that word later. Our houses to strangers, and the word is xenos there. Okay, these are the ones that we are to show love to, philoxenos. We are become orphans, we have no father, and our mothers are as widows. In the Hebrew, the word there is, our inheritance has been turned over to zarim, and we'll look at what it is to be a stranger in the terms of being a zar, and our houses to foreigners. So this is really what xenos means, okay? And the word is nakri. Nakri is a foreigner. When you see these endings on something, im, it's plural. So the zarim is strangers. Nakriim is strangers. Nakri is stranger. Zar is stranger in another sense. In the Septuagint, we also see the word xenos here. Okay, return and dwell with the king, for thou art a Xenos. In the Hebrew, for you are a Nakri. So we see this equivalence between the two terms. Ruth 2:10. What is it that I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take notice of me, whereas I am a Xenos? And again, in the Hebrew, it is I am a Nakri, I am a foreigner. So Nokri is where we get the word from, and it means literally a foreigner or an alien, somebody who is outside, who has come in. They would be a stranger in that sense. However, the strangers who have come in previously and have come to dwell with us, for example, and they're all described using different words, and understanding those words allows us to understand the Torah. In Job 31:32, we see the stranger, the Xenos, but in the Hebrew, the word is Geir. Now, I would suggest that this is a point where the Septuagint is more accurate, because look at what Job is saying. The Geir is somebody who's come to dwell there that doesn't have the rights of a citizen. The Xenos is a stranger, someone who's a foreigner to the land, who's just come into the land. So when Job says, the stranger did not have to spend the night in the street, for I've opened my doors to the traveler, the Geir is not a traveler. Okay, the Xenos is a traveler. But we'll understand these words when we see them all in context. So here we've got Geir. It means a sojourner, a temporary inhabitant, a newcomer lacking inherited rights, of foreigners in Israel through conceded rights. Okay, so the scriptures actually say that we were all Geir in Israel, but we'll look at that. It's basically somebody who's dwelling there that doesn't have the rights of a citizen. Genesis 23:3-4 says, Then Abraham rose up from beside his dead and spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am a Geir and a sojourner. The word there is toshav among you. Okay, so we understand Geir is someone who's dwelling there that doesn't have the rights of a citizen, and a sojourner. So this is when he is among the sons of Heth, when he goes to get the grave. Okay, and he's also a toshav, so we need to understand what this word means. Toshav, sojourner, stranger, doesn't really help us, but this does. From Strong's H3427, which we'll look at, a dweller, but not outlandish, not really a good translation. This H5237 is Nokri, that's a foreigner, okay, but not a foreigner. Especially as distinguished from a native citizen, okay, and a temporary inmate, distinguished. They're not temporary inmates, they're not mere lodgers there, and they're not native citizens, and they're not foreigners. Okay, and it's from this word here. And this word is yashav. This is the verb. And it means to dwell, to remain, to abide somewhere. So this is what someone who is a toshav is. Okay, so someone who is a toshav is not temporary. They're not merely lodging there. They're not a native citizen. And they're not a foreigner. They're somebody who's come to dwell or abide in a place. That's what Abraham was with the sons of Heth. Exodus 18:2-3 says, in Yethro, Moshe's father-in-law, took Zipporah, the wife of Moshe, after he sent her back, and her two sons, of whom the name of one was Geir Shom, for he said, I have been a Geir in a Nakriah land. Okay, so he's been somebody that doesn't have the rights of the citizenship in a foreign land, is really what it should say. We come across all these terms and they're translated like a scattergun effect, and we just don't have any clue what they're actually saying unless we understand the words that are behind them. But here we can understand. Okay, he come to dwell among them. He didn't have the rights of a citizen, but it was a foreign land still. Exodus 18:2-3, the same scripture in the Septuagint says, and Jothor, the father-in-law of Moses, took Zipporah, the wife of Moses, after she had been sent away. And her two sons, the name of one was Gersam, his father saying, I am a peroikos. Okay, again, we see in the Greek, you lose a bit of resolution here. It makes sense in the Hebrew. His name was Gershom because he said, I am a Ger. Here in the Greek, it says, I am a peroikos in an allotrios land. Okay, so what's a peroikos? Peroikos In the New Testament, a stranger or foreigner, one who lives in a place without the right of citizenship. So what we can see is this is the Greek word for ger. So peroikos and ger are equivalent terms. Ephesians 2:19 says, so then you are no longer xenos, okay, foreigners, and peroikos, okay, the ger, someone who does not have a right of citizenship. So we're no longer foreigners and people who don't have the right of citizenship, but fellow citizens with the set-apart ones and members of the household of Elohim. This is what happens when we come to Yeshua. We are made a part of Israel. We have the rights of the Israelites. We're no longer foreign to Israel. Okay, this word zer is one that we need to understand, because this is one that we need to keep at arm's length. Exodus 29:33 says, and they shall eat those offerings with which the atonement was made, to ordain them, to set them apart. But let a stranger, in the word there, zar, not eat them. Okay, so you've got the holy offerings. The zar cannot eat them. So what makes this person a zar? They're not a foreigner. They're not someone dwelling there with the rights of a citizen. So we need to understand this. This is what Gesenius's Hebrew lexicon says about it. As opposed to that which is upright, true, and lawful, strange is the same as unlawful. And we've heard this word before, okay? Do not offer strange incense on it. The word is zara. The reason it's zara instead of zar is because it's got a feminine ending. If the noun, incense, which follows it, is feminine, the adjective becomes feminine as well. So it's not a different word, it's the same word. Do not offer strange incense on it, unlawful incense, that which is not required by the Torah as incense that you can offer there. So that's what it is for it to be zar. Leviticus 10 verse 1, and Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aharon, each took his fire holder and put fire in and put incense upon it, and brought strange fire, zara fire, before Yahovah. So it's fire that is unlawful. We can read this and we can go, what does it mean? Strange fire? Is it peculiar fire? Is it weird fire? No, it's not. It's not of the sort that is acceptable to Yahovah. Deuteronomy 32:16, they moved him to jealousy with strangers, zarim, again the plural, okay? With abominations they provoked him. And these strangers are strange gods in the context. Exodus 30:33 says, whoever compounds any like it, this is the holy ointment, and whoever puts any of it on a stranger, a zar, shall be cut off from his people. So here, a stranger, we read this and we think this is somebody who's not part of Israel. Don't put it on anyone who's not an Israelite. But that's not what it means. You can't put this on anyone other than the priests. So anyone other than the priests in this context is a zar, is a stranger. But again, we just completely miss that when we just read the stranger. What does it mean to put it on a stranger? Surely it means somebody of a foreign land. No, anybody in Israel who's not, king of Israel, king of Judah, David himself, if you put it on David, you'd be putting it on a stranger. Leviticus 22:12-13 says, and when a priest's daughter is married to a stranger, she does not eat of the set-apart offerings. Okay, so usually a priest's daughter would be able to eat of the offerings that were brought. However, if she's married to somebody who is outside of the priestly line, that's what a stranger means in this context, somebody who is not allowed to eat it according to the Torah. She can't eat of the set-apart offerings. But when a priest's daughter is a widow or put away and has no child, and has returned to her father's house in her youth, she does eat her father's food, but no stranger, nobody who is outside of that can eat of those things. So basically what it's saying is, by her marriage to somebody who's not allowed to eat them, she doesn't then bring them into being able to eat them. But a stranger, again, could be anyone of the children of Israel. Numbers 12:51, and when the dwelling place is to go forward, the Levites take it down. And when the dwelling place is to be set up, the Levites set it up, and the stranger who comes near is put to death. So who's the stranger in this? It's the Levites. We already have those who are not the stranger defined, the Levites. Anyone that's outside of that. Anyone of any other tribe comes near for any other reason, they're a stranger. Numbers 3 verse 10 says, and appoint Aharon and his sons, and they shall guard their priesthood, and the stranger who comes near shall be put to death. So here it's not just the Levites, it's Aharon and his sons, so it's even more particular. Anyone outside of that is a Zar. Numbers 16:39-40 says, and Eleazar the priest took the bronze fire holders with those who were burned up it brought, and they were beaten out as a covering on the altar, a remembrance to the children of Yisrael that no Zar who is not of the seed of Aaron should come near to offer incense before Yehovah, and not be like Korach and his company. So they were Levites, okay, but they were, in this context, they were strangers, because Yehovah's law said anyone who's outside of this is not allowed to do it. So that is to be counted as a stranger. So think of it again as what's not lawful, or what is outside of a particular context. Deuteronomy 25:5, when brothers dwell together and one of them is died and he has no son, the widow of the dead man shall not become as strangers outside. Again, it's not saying not to go to someone of another nation. It's saying somebody who is strange to the family group. Anyone outside of that particular family in this context is a Zar. Psalm 44 verse 20 says, if we have forgotten the name of our Elohim, or stretched out our hands to a El Zar, a strange God, strange in that way though. Job 19:15, the guests in my house and my female servants reckon me for a Zar, reckon me for someone who's outside of that context. I am a Nakri in their eyes, a foreigner. Our inheritance has been turned over to Zarim, those who are not part of the covenants, okay, those who are not lawful according to Torah, and our houses to Nakrim. Okay, so in the Septuagint, the word for Zarim is this word that we saw before, allotrios. And understanding this word, we can understand a lot of the scriptures in the New Testament, and a lot of what Yeshua was saying. Leviticus 10 verse 1, and offered allotrios fire, so it's strange fire in the same way. To be a stranger in this way is to be a stranger in the same way as being a Zar. Hebrews 11:9 tells us something interesting when we understand that. This is talking about Abraham. It says, by belief he sojourned in a land of promise as a allotrios country. Okay, dwelling with Yitzchak and Yaakov, the heirs with him of the same promise. So he was dwelling with them, but all that was around him was allotrios. It was Zar, it was strange, and we find ourselves in the same situation when we dwell in the world. Exodus 18:2-3, and Jotham, the father of Moses, took Zipporah, the wife of Moses, after she had been sent away. Two sons, the name of one was Gersam, his father saying, I was a sojourner, peroikos, in an allotrios land. Okay, so it's the same. An allotrios land, just like where Abraham was dwelling. The land was allotrios, it was strange to him. It was the same for Moses. John 10:4-5 now makes a lot more sense when we understand this. And when we can understand that allotrios is Zar in the Hebrew, and we can look who the Zarim, the strangers, are in the Hebrew, then we can understand what Yeshua meant when he said, when he brought out his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. And they shall by no means follow an allotrios, not just somebody who's a foreigner or somebody who's strange, unfamiliar to us, somebody who is actually unlawful outside of the word of God, who's teaching something different to the word of God, basically, but shall flee from him because they do not know the voice of the allotrios, or the voice of the Zar in the Hebrew. Okay, so this word, okay, apolotriao, this is the verb that it comes from. If we can understand this, we can understand a lot of scriptures better, or a few scriptures better. It means to be alienated or to be alien. In Ephesians 2 verse 12 it says, then at that time you were without Messiah, excluded from the citizenship of Israel. So we know that we were excluded from the citizenship, we didn't have the rights of a citizen, but now we're brought near by the blood of Messiah. We're excluded from the citizenship of Israel, and strangers, apalotriao, okay? We were alienated from the covenants of promise. In the same way, we were strange to the covenants of promise. We were of a different sort. Once we're brought into the covenants of promise, obviously we become lawful. We are no longer apolotriatos. Ephesians 4:17 to 18 says, "So this I say and witness in the Master, you should no longer walk as the Gentiles walk in the futility of their mind, having been darkened from their understanding, having been apolotriao, estranged, alienated from the life of Elohim," to be strange from the life of Elohim. Colossians 1:21, "And you who were apolotriao, an enemies in the mind by wicked works, we were made strange from the covenants of promise, strange from the Torah by our works, which were in contravention of the Torah. But now he is completely restored to favor." So John 10:4-5 speaks of the sheep following him because they know his voice. What is this voice? Is he just making this up? Is Yeshua saying, you'll know my voice? Or is he referring to something in the Hebrew? "And they shall by no means follow an apolotrios, or allotrios. They shall by no means follow a czar." Okay, so let's find a czar in scripture that we shouldn't be following, and let's find a voice that we should be following. Proverbs 8, okay, this is wisdom. And it says, "Does not wisdom call and understanding lift up her voice?" Okay, so this is the voice that we should know. "On the top of the heights along the way, between the paths she has taken her stand. Beside the gates leading to the city, at the entrances she shouts, 'O men, I call to you, and my voice is to the sons of men.' You simple ones, understand insight, and you fools, be of an understanding heart. Listen, for I speak noble words, and the opening of my lips is about straightness. For my mouth speaks truth, and wrongness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness, none of them twisted or crooked." So this is the voice that we should recognize, okay? "All of them plain to him who understands." We've looked before at understanding and knowing being the same thing, or being very closely related concepts at the least. Okay, all of them are plain to him who knows the voice. They'll follow the voice of Yeshua, who speaks wisdom. Okay, all of them plain to him who knows, and straight to those who find knowledge. "Accept my discipline and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all delights are not comparable to her. I, wisdom, have dwelt with insight, and I find knowledge, foresight. The fear of Yehovah is to hate evil. I have hated pride and arrogance, and the evil way and the perverse mouth. Counsel is mine and sound wisdom. I am understanding, mightiness is mine. By me kings reign and rulers make righteous decrees. By me princes rule and nobles, all the judges of the earth. I love those who love me." Very similar to what Yeshua said again. "And those who earnestly seek me do find me. Riches and esteem are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold and fine gold, and my increase than choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness, in the midst of the paths of right ruling, to bestow substance on those who love me, and to fill their treasuries. Yehovah possess me, the beginning of his way, as the first of his works of old." Okay, so this is the word of Elohim, kind of taking on human characteristics here. As a woman, we're going to find out about another woman in Scripture that we're not to follow. Okay, the strange woman. And as it turns out, the strange woman is the Zar, or the Zara woman, feminine ending, the Zara woman. That's the stranger that we will not recognize the voice of. So this is the word of Yehovah, and it says, "As the first of his works of old, Yehovah brought everything into being by his word." The first thing brought forth was the word of Yehovah. "I was set up ages ago at the first, before the earth ever was. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no springs heavy with water. Before mountains were sunk, before the hills I was brought forth, before he had made the earth and the fields or the first dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he decreed a vault on the face of the deep. When he set the clouds above, when he made the fountains of the deep strong. When he gave to the sea its limit so that the waters would not transgress his command. When he decreed the foundations of the earth. Then I was beside him, a master workman, and I was his delight day by day, rejoicing with him all the time. Rejoicing in the world, his earth, and my delights were with the sons of men. And now listen to me, you children, for blessed are they who guard my ways. Listen to discipline and become wise, and do not refuse it. Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the post of my doors. For whoever finds me shall find life and obtain favor from Yehovah. But he who sins against me injures himself, and all who hate me love death. Okay, so this is the voice that when we hear it, if we are his sheep, we will recognize this voice. There's another voice, though, that speaks. And Yeshua says that is the voice of the allotrios, or in the Hebrew, the Zar. So Proverbs 2:11-20 tells us of the voice of the Zar that we should not listen to. Discretion would guard you, understanding would watch over you, to deliver you from the evil way, from the man who speaks perversities. Those who leave the paths of straightness to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice to do evil, they delight in the perversities of evil, whose paths are crooked and they are perverted in their ways, to deliver you from the strange, the Zar woman, from the Nakriah, who flatters with her words. So this is the allotrios. In the Septuagint, the word is allotrios. This is the allotrios that we should not be listening to, whose voice we will not recognize. Who forsakes the companion of her youth and has forgotten the covenant of her Elohim. And her house is sunken down to death, and her paths to the dead. None going into her does return, nor do they reach the paths of life. And this is amazing, because we see this in the lives of people around us. The people who recognize the voice of the strange woman, the one that comes with the weird doctrine that isn't entirely straight, that isn't the Torah, the exact Torah. They go after weird doctrines. We were talking before, Rob, about the weird doctrines that people believe and get led astray by. It's because they're following the allotrios. They're following the voice of strangers, the voice of the strange woman. So walk in the way of goodness and guard the paths of righteousness. Proverbs 5 talks about her as well. It says, my son, listen to my wisdom. Okay, so that's what you should be doing, listening to the woman in Proverbs 8. Listen to my wisdom, incline your ear to my understanding, so as to watch over discretion, and your lips guard knowledge. For the lips of a strange woman, okay, a Zara, the word woman's not even in there. Strange is just given the feminine ending, so it implies the strange woman. Drip honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. This is the voice of the stranger that people will go after, because the lips drip honey, the mouth is smoother than oil, and it sounds seductive, it sounds right. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps lay hold of Sheol. She does not consider the path of life, her ways are unstable. You do not know it, you will not know the voice of the allotrios, the voice of the Zara. So now listen to me, you children, and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Keep your way far from her, and do not come near the door of her house. This is a warning to us, because you cannot give this warning to people who recognize the voice of strangers, because they do not recognize the voice of wisdom. They don't recognize it. They don't know it when they hear it. They know the voice of strangers. But to us, we have the warning. When you encounter things like this, keep your way far from her. A lot of people want to keep up going to Christian church because, they want to go and love the people there, or they want to go and show them this, or they want to go and show them that. But we're told in Scripture very plainly not to have anything to do with it. Okay, her steps lead to Sheol. And do not come near the door of her house, lest you give your splendor to others and your years to one who is cruel. Lest strangers, Zarim, those who are strange from the Torah, be filled with your strength, and your labors go to the house of a Nakri. Then you shall howl in your latter end when your flesh and your body are consumed, and shall say, how I have hated discipline, and my heart has despised reproof. And I have not heeded the voice of my teachers, and I have not inclined my ear to those who instructed me. Okay, this is talking about the lake of fire, when people are cast into the lake of fire. How you shall howl in your latter end when your flesh and your body are consumed. And you will say how I have hated discipline, and how I did not listen to the voice of my teachers. These people are going to recognize at this point what they were saying was right. Why didn't I listen? I didn't know their voice. In a little while, I was in all evil, in the midst of an assembly and a congregation. Drink water from your own cistern and running water from your own well. Should your springs be scattered abroad, rivers of water in the streets, enough as Arim with you. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of your youth. A loving deer and a pleasant doe, let her breast satisfy you at all times, and be captivated by her love, always the voice of wisdom. For why should you, my son, be captivated by a Zarah, a strange woman, and embrace the bosom of a Nakriyah, a foreigner? For the ways of man are before the eyes of Yehovah, and he considers all his paths. The wrong one is entrapped in his own crookednesses, and he is caught in the cords of his sin. And we're going to look later at what it is for people to be lied to, what it is for them to be led astray. Okay, you've got people teaching all sorts of lies, and there's two different camps that can fall into. Okay, are they people who want to believe the lies, or are they people who have genuinely been deceived? And we see that Yehovah treats both groups of people differently. But the wrong one's entrapped in his own crookednesses. He's caught in the cords of his sin. He dies for lack of discipline, and in the greatness of his folly he goes astray. I saw among the simple, I perceived among the youths a young man lacking heart. Okay, we're to go after Yehovah with all our heart, soul, and strength. This young man lacks heart. Passing through the street near her corner, and he went the way to her house, in the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night. And look, a woman met him, dressed like a whore with a hidden heart. She was turbulent and stubborn. Her feet did not stay at her own house. Now in the street, now in the square, and at every corner she lurks. And she took hold of him and kissed him. She hardened her face and said to him, peace offerings are with me. Today I have paid my vows. So this is the strange woman. Okay, obviously not in accordance with scripture. Okay, she grabs hold of him and kisses him, hardens her face, and then she makes a declaration that peace offerings are with her. You know, this is somebody who is following the Torah religiously. You know, I've done the religious works, but look at her attitude, look at how she is. Therefore I came out to meet you, to earnestly seek your face, and I found you. I have spread my bed with coverings, colored linens of Mitzrayim. I have sprinkled my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love until morning. Let us delight ourselves with loves. For my husband is not at home. He is gone on a long journey. So this is the seductive, strange woman who leads these people who are seeking Yehovah, perhaps, but they want the people who do a bit of the Torah. You know, I've done the Torah. Yeah, this bit's not right, but I do the Torah. I am a Torah keeper. He took a bag of silver with him. He comes home on the day of the new moon. That's Kesef for anybody who saw the calendar teaching. With her many words, she leads him astray. With her smooth lips, she seduces him. So again, this is the allotrios. In the Septuagint, it's described as the allotrios, the stranger that we should not recognize the voice of. He goes after her immediately like an ox. He goes to the slaughter, and as in chains, a fool to the punishment. This is the attitude of these people, isn't it? You see people, they come up with a false doctrine. Someone tells them a false doctrine that excuses their nonsense, what they want to do that is different from what the Torah says to do, and they go after it straight away. They run after it as if it's the greatest thing in the world. Till an arrow strikes through his liver like a bird rushing into a snare, and did not know that it would take his life. And now listen to me, you children, pay attention to the words of my mouth. Do not let your heart turn aside to her ways. Do not go astray in her paths. And again, this is only a warning to us. We can see these things, but the people who are going astray in these ways, they can't see them. So these are a warning to us to not be involved with them. For many are the wounded she has caused to fall, and numerous all her slain ones. Her house is on the way to Sheol, going down to the rooms of death. Now we'll come to a close shortly. What I want to do is I want to understand these words in the context of the Torah commands that we've been given, because it's all very well and good having all of this knowledge about what these words mean, but the only actual utility in that is being able to apply it to the scriptures to get a greater understanding from what Yehovah wants. Point that I want to make, 1 Kings 11 verse 1, it says, and King Shlomo loved many strange women. Okay, point about it being important for us to understand the words that are used. Okay, it's not women who were Zar or Zara, who were strange in that way. They were Nakriot, just means foreign women. Okay, so we can read in the translations and we go, well, this person's a stranger, this person's a stranger, do this to the stranger, do that to the stranger. Okay, but we're not to recognize the voice of strangers. How does that all work? With this information, we can work it out. Proverbs 27 verse 13 says, take the garment of him who is guarantor for a Zar, and for a strange woman, a Nakriyah, pledge it. Again, the word woman isn't there. If you've got the feminine ending on it, it's not actually necessary. It's just the foreign feminine thing, the strange woman, pledge it. Deuteronomy 14:21, and do not eat whatever dies of itself. Give it to the Geyer who is within your gates, those who do not have the rights of citizenship, to eat it or sell it to a Nakri, somebody from a foreign land. Deuteronomy 15:3, of a Nakri, you could require it. Okay, so when you're to release debts of someone who is foreign to Israel, you could require it. Deuteronomy 17:15, you shall certainly set a king over you whom Yehovah your Elohim shall choose. Set a king over you from among your brothers. You are not allowed to set a Nakri over you. Okay, so somebody from a foreign land, absolutely not allowed to be king. Deuteronomy 27:19, cursed is he who twists the judgment of a Geyer, somebody who's come to dwell among Israel but doesn't have the rights of citizenship. To a foreigner, to a Nakri, you lend the interest, but that's not to a Geyer. Okay, if somebody's within the community, they haven't got the rights of citizenship, you can't sell it to them. It's only to these specific people, or give an interest to them, to the foreigner. 1 Kings 8:41-43 makes Solomon's prayer here interesting. It says, also concerning a foreigner who is not of your people Israel, but has come from a far land for your name's sake, since they hear of your great name and your strong hand and your outstretched arm, and he shall come and pray toward this house. Here in the heavens your dwelling place, and do according to all for which the Nakri calls to you. Okay, so it's again, we've got another testimony to the Gentiles being brought into covenant, being brought into Israel if they do these things, if they walk in the covenant, if they follow the Shabbat, as it says in Isaiah. And Yehovah said to Moshe and Aharon, this is the law of the Passover. No son of a Nakar, and that's the word Nakri. I'm not going to go into why it's differently rendered, but it's basically a foreigner. No son of a foreigner is to eat of it. But any servant, a man who is bought for silver, when you have circumcised him, then let him eat of it. A sojourner, a toshav, someone who's just dwelling there, and a hired servant does not eat of it. So if there's somebody who is dwelling with us, but they're nothing to do with Israel, they don't have to be a foreigner, they don't have to be a Geyer, just a toshav, just somebody who's dwelling there, and not temporary dwelling, somebody who's just dwelling with us, they are not allowed to eat of the Passover meal. And this has been brought up, obviously, because people have family members. And is it okay for my family member who is nothing to do with this, is it okay for them to eat the Passover meal? Well, here we've got an answer. The toshav and the hired servant does not eat of it. Leviticus 22 verse 10, and no stranger, no one who is Zar, eats the set-apart offering. Okay, only Aharon and his sons. A sojourner, a toshav with the priest, or a hired servant does not eat the set-apart offering. So we can get a little bit more information here. Okay, so no stranger eats the set-apart offering, but we know those within the priest's house can. So it says, anyone who's just dwelling there, they can't eat of it. Anyone who's just a hired servant, they can't eat of it. Just because they're in the priest's house doesn't mean anything. Deuteronomy 16:14, and you shall rejoice in your festival, you and your son and your daughter, and your male servant, your female servant, and the Levite, and the Gayer, and the fatherless, and the widow who are within your gates. So we can understand more now who the stranger is that we are to do these things for. When you beat your olive trees, do not examine the branch behind you. Let it be for the Gayer, let it be for those who are there, who are dwelling without the rights of citizenship. Same when you gather the grapes of your vineyard, don't glean behind you, leave it for the Gayer. Deuteronomy 10:18-19 says, he executes judgment for the fatherless and the widow and loves the Gayer, giving him food and a garment. And you shall love the stranger, the Gayer, for you were Gerim in the land of Mitzrayim. So it's told to love the stranger, okay? Again, and that brings us back full circle. Do not forget to receive strangers, to love the xenos, okay? Love the stranger here. And the xenos is used in place of ger, as we saw.